Okay, so now we know how to call the APIs directly with fetch, which was quick and dirty coding method. We then used a client package to make API calls, which are more reliable and more production quality code. But there are some cases where you're going to want to write your own client. A few motivations for writing your own client would be if you want to use a different language, if the client package doesn't do exactly what you want, or if there's no client package available for the API. We do occasionally put API development ahead of client development. So in these cases, you could write a client wrapper from scratch using fetches and creating your own types, but that's pretty time consuming and a bit cumbersome. A more elegant solution would be to use some tooling and OpenAPI JSON to automatically generate a client. So I ran into a situation during development of my app where I'm going to have to generate my own client. Basically, the situation is I want to add thumbnails here in this iModels table instead of just listing the IDs. So I intended to use the download iModel thumbnail endpoint from the iModels API. But when I went to the client that I've been using, iModels Client Management, I noticed that this client only exposes a subset of the iModels API. And unfortunately, thumbnails is not part of the API that it exposes. And so since I want to use that iModels functionality, I'm going to have to generate my own client. I just wanted to give a quick coding update before I go ahead and generate the client. I've done some more React work. I now have a iModels thumbnail React component, and it's currently just some dummy data here where I actually go ahead and set the image. My app is looking like this right now, where this is the iModels thumbnail component, and as you can see, it's currently broken. So why don't I go ahead and generate this client so that I can make the thumbnail call and actually have an image here. So the first step in generating a client from OpenAPI JSON is to download the JSON using this download button. This will download a JSON format of the entire iModels API, so you don't need to worry about being on a specific endpoint or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and copy this over to my app for later. So the second step would be to find a generator that you want to use. You just go to your favorite search engine and type in OpenAPI JSON client generator, something like that. I've done this previously and I have landed on Swagger TypeScript API. It's a tool that I've used before. I've found the CLI to be useful and the documentation to be decent. So this is the tool I'm going to use, but like I said, there's dozens or hundreds available for you to choose from. So once you find a tool that you like, that you trust, that you're going to use, you should definitely read the documentation on that one specifically and find out how to use it. So after perusing the docs, I know that my command is this. You call Swagger TypeScript API, you give it the path to the JSON that I downloaded earlier here. You tell it the output. I decided to put it in source client, and you give it a name. I chose iModels API.ts, so that just finished. So here, this file was generated automatically. So let's take a look at the actual class that got created. This one. And I'm going to go ahead and rename it because just API is not very descriptive. So my iModels API sounds better to me. We see that it's parameterized on security data type. That's going to be string for me. It's going to be that access token. It extends the HTTP client. So that looks like this. And one thing that I'm going to take note of is you can pass in a security worker, which is what I'm going to use to pass the authorization header. I read about this a little bit in the docs. There's a handy GIF here that shows how to set security data. So now that I've read the docs and briefly perused the resulting code, let's go ahead and use it. The first thing I'm going to do is instantiate a iModels client. New my iModels API. And like I said, the security data type is going to be string. And we need to pass in the security worker function, which takes an access token. And if the access token is set, I'm going to return a headers object. And as we know, iModels API takes an authorization header with access token. Otherwise, I'm going to return nothing. Okay, that looks good. So now that's the function. To actually set the data, I need to call iModels API.set security data, and it's going to be our access token. Just like that. So the security worker function and the security data is specific to the client that I generated. Your mileage may vary, obviously, but we do know that iTwin platform APIs do always require this authorization header. So next, to use it in my get thumbnail, take out the mocked image. I'm going to say if we have an access token, if the user is signed in, basically, we're going to get a response from our API. iModels API and .id.get iModels thumbnail. That. And we're going to pass in iModel.id, which comes in from this prop, as well as the access token. All right, now I'm going to check the response. If it came back good, I'm going to go ahead and get the image out of the body. Await data.array buffer. Then I'm going to pass this helper function, convert array buffer. I wrote this helper function previously. It's not relevant to the course really, but I can then go ahead and set thumbnail to that image since it's base 64 ping. And now I need to update this dependency array. I'm just going to paste in that. Oh, this is case strong. Now let's start our app, see if it worked. So when we click on a project, we get the thumbnail, and it came from our generated client. So in summary, I downloaded the iModels JSON from developer.bentley.com. I ran it through a client generator, which produced for me a client. I then read how to use the client. Specifically, the security data was a key here. I know I had to set the authorization header for iTwin platform requests. I then used the client, the resulting client, the way it's intended to be used, and I made my iTwin platform API requests that way. And in the end, I get my thumbnail. So listing iModels and their thumbnails is a fairly common use case in iTwin platform. And similarly to how we have client packages available for interacting with the API, we also have React components in NPM packages that you can use to build your apps. So in the next lesson, I will go over how to use these React components. But this app is starting to look good and we're on a roll.